You know that brand new computer you've been eyeing with 16 gigs of RAM? Well, I've got some news for you. It might actually be obsolete the second you pull it out of the box. And this isn't some rare mistake. It's a trap that millions of us are falling into, where the best advice from just a couple of years ago has turned into today's biggest performance headache. But don't worry, you're not going to fall for it. Because over the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly what's going on. I'm going to give you a super simple, clear guide to help you figure out what you truly need, not what the stores want to sell you, so you can make a smart decision that'll actually last. So let's just dive right into the big one, the question that's causing all this confusion. Is 16 gigabytes of RAM obsolete? And look, this isn't just some techie question for people building supercomputers. This really matters if you're a student buying a new laptop, or a gamer who just wants things to run smoothly, or maybe you're a creator editing photos and videos. Honestly, it's for anyone buying a PC today. You see that 16 GB sticker everywhere and it's marketed as the perfect, ideal amount. But what if that's just not true anymore? What if, for a lot of us, it's already not enough to keep up with what we do every day? We're going to dig into the real-world proof and see if this old standard can still hang. You know, for the longest time, the advice from tech experts was super simple, super clear. If you were building a PC or buying a new laptop, the sweet spot, that perfect balance of price and performance, was 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD, or solid-state drive. Okay, quick refresher. RAM is basically your computer's short-term memory. Think of it like your desk. It's for all the stuff you're working on right now. The SSD, that's your long-term storage, kind of like a filing cabinet where you keep all your games, your files, your programs forever. And for years, that combination, a big desk and a pretty roomy filing cabinet, was perfect. But things have changed. The way we use our computers, the software, the games, everything is bigger and more demanding, and it's putting a serious strain on that once perfect setup. And this slide, wow, it really lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the old standard. A little while ago, 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD, well, that felt like plenty. Your computer was fast, you had room for your operating system, all your apps, and maybe 2-3 big games. No problem. But now look over at the right. The new expectation has literally doubled. People are now saying that 32 gigs of RAM and a full 1 terabyte SSD is the new comfortable minimum. So why the huge jump? Well, it's because that 16 gig setup is quickly going from feeling comfortable to just being usable. And there's a huge difference. Usable means, yeah, it'll work, but it's going to struggle, it might slow down, and you're going to feel it. So let's look at some real-world tests that show exactly why this is happening. Okay, enough talk, let's get into the hard evidence. Because talking about these numbers is one thing, but seeing how it all plays out when you're actually using your computer, that's what really matters. We're about to look at some tests that show how the stuff you do every single day, like playing a game or just having some tabs open, is eating up your computer's memory. This is where we're going to see the cracks start to show in that 16 gigabyte foundation, and I think you'll be pretty surprised by how quickly simple things can push a modern PC right to its edge. All right, look at this number right here. 18 gigabytes. Now, this isn't from some crazy scientific lab test. This is from a super common everyday scenario. We're talking about playing a popular online game while streaming it with a free program like OBS and just having 3 little browser tabs open in the background. Maybe one's for music, another for Discord, whatever. Think about that for a second. With just one game, one streaming app, and a few web pages, we're already using 18 gigs of RAM. Let me put that in a different way so it's crystal clear. If your computer has 16 gigs of RAM, this very normal activity is already asking for more memory than your computer physically has. And that's exactly when things start to get slow. So what really happens when your PC needs 18 gigs but only has 16? Does it just explode? No, not usually, but it does get noticeably, frustratingly slower. And here's the easiest way to picture why. Imagine your RAM as your actual desk. It's where you keep everything you're working on right now. It's fast, everything is right there at your fingertips. Now imagine your SSD, your storage drive, is a filing cabinet you keep down in the basement. When your desk gets too full, your computer has to make room. So it takes some of the stuff from your desk and moves it down to the filing cabinet in the basement. This is called using a page file. The problem is, every time you need something that's in the basement, you have to stop what you're doing, run all the way downstairs, find the file, and bring it all the way back up. That trip to the basement is thousands of times slower than just reaching across your desk. And that slowdown, that's what you feel when your PC starts to lag. It's constantly running down to the basement to grab overflow files. Okay, what if you're not a gamer? Let's look at another super common scenario, this time for anyone who's a creative or even just a hobbyist. As you can see here, just running 2 of the most popular creative apps out there, Adobe Premiere Pro for video and Photoshop for photos at the same time, uses 20 gigabytes of RAM. And that's not even with a huge, complicated project open. That's just having the programs running ready to go. I mean, tons of creators do this. You might be making a cool graphic in Photoshop to then immediately drop it into your video in Premiere. It's a normal workflow. But as you can see, a standard 16 gig system would be constantly run into that filing cabinet in the basement, making the whole creative process feel slow and choppy. And this is where things get really wild, and we get a glimpse of the future. Just look at that number, 31 gigabytes. This test shows what happens when you mix a creative app like Photoshop with this incredible new tech, running an AI model right on your own computer. Basically, instead of using AI tools on a website, you're running them yourself, locally. These things are unbelievably powerful, but man, are they hungry for memory. As you can see, this combo uses almost all of the 32 gigs in the system. Let's be really clear here. If you're interested in this exciting new world of local AI, 16 gigabytes isn't just going to be slow, it's a complete non-starter. It just won't work. For this stuff, 32 gigs becomes the absolute mandatory price of entry. You know, this isn't just about numbers on a chart, it's about what real people are feeling every single day. And this comment from a viewer, Fung39X, just nails it. They said 8 gig is useless, 16 gig is struggling but still okay for now, 32 gig is the sweet spot. That word, struggling, it's perfect. It perfectly captures what it feels like to use a 16 gig system now. You can get by, but you're always thinking about it. You're closing browser tabs before you start a game, you're making sure nothing else is running, you're constantly managing your PC to keep it from slowing down. But 32 gigs, that's where you get that freedom back. That's the new sweet spot where your computer just works and you don't have to think about it. Okay, so that's RAM, but that's only half the story, right? There's this second trap we need to talk about, and it has to do with that filing cabinet itself. It's not just our computer's short-term memory that's under pressure. The amount of long-term storage we need has just exploded. That 512 gigabyte or even 1 terabyte drive that used to feel massive, well, now it can feel like it's shrinking right before your eyes. Let's break down how huge modern games and project files are making bigger drives more essential than ever. This chart is a pretty scary but realistic look at the problem. It shows how a 1 terabyte drive, that's 1,000 gigabytes, can fill up so fast. So let's say you've got some project files, maybe some video clips or high-res photos. Boom, that's 40% of your drive, 400 gigs gone. Then you install just 3 big modern AAA games. Poof, there goes another 40%, another 400 gigs. And then, of course, you have your operating system like Windows and all your basic apps. That's another 10%, or 100 gigs. And just like that, you're left with only 10% of free space. Here's the kicker. SSDs actually get slower when they get close to full. So a 1 terabyte drive, which sounds huge, is suddenly 90% full and starting to feel sluggish with just a few games and projects on it. And this comment from Lucas Chutu just drives the point home perfectly. He points out that just one single game, Ark Survival Evolved, with all its extra content, can take up over 300 gigabytes of space. By itself. I mean, think about that. That one game would fill up more than half of a 512 gigabyte drive. If you install one other big game, your drive is basically full. This is exactly why so many gamers now say a 1 terabyte drive is the absolute non-negotiable minimum. Otherwise, you're just stuck in this constant, annoying loop of having to delete a game you like just to make room to try a new one. It's no fun. Okay, so we've laid out the problems pretty clearly. We've seen how both RAM, our computer's desk space, and storage, its filing cabinet, are being pushed to the limit. But here's the most important part of this whole explainer. The right answer isn't the same for everybody. Just telling everyone, go buy 32 gigs of RAM and a 2 terabyte drive is bad advice, because for a lot of people, that's just a waste of money. The real answer depends entirely on what you actually do with your computer. So in this next part, we're going to walk through a simple guide to help you figure out what kind of user you are and find the perfect specs for your needs. All right, this table right here, this is the key. Let's go through it nice and slow, one person at a time. First up, the casual user. Maybe this is you. You mostly browse the web, use Microsoft Office, stream some Netflix or Spotify. If that's you, honestly, the old standard of 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD is still totally fine. You won't really see a benefit from spending more. Next, the mainstream gamer. You love playing games, but you usually just stick to 1 or 2 big AAA games at a time, and you're on Discord with friends. For you, 16 gigs of RAM is probably still okay for now, but like we saw, games are huge, so a 1 terabyte SSD is really your new minimum to avoid that whole delete and reinstall dance. Then the power user.
You're a serious multitasker. You've got 50 browser tabs open, you're editing videos or photos, and you're always flipping between apps. For you, 32 gigs of RAM is the new sweet spot. That's what's going to give you that smooth, frustration-free feeling. And you'll want at least a 1 terabyte SSD for your projects. Finally, the pro or AI developer. If you're compiling code, training AI models, or doing heavy 3D work, well, 32 gigs is just the starting line. You might need 64 gigs or even more. And a 2 terabyte or bigger SSD is basically mandatory for all your massive files.
So really, the most important thing you can do right now is just take a minute and be honest with yourself. Think about how you actually use your computer every day, not how you think you might use it someday. Are you mostly a gamer who's constantly getting that annoying storage full pop-up? If that's your main frustration, then your priority should be a bigger SSD. Or are you more of a power user who feels that lag all the time, that sluggish feeling when you switch between programs? If that's you, then adding more RAM is going to give you the biggest, most immediate improvement. Understanding your own habits is the absolute key to making a smart purchase instead of just wasting money on parts you don't really need. And that brings us to the final, and for a lot of us, the trickiest part of the whole puzzle: money. I mean, we're not buying a computer just for today, right? We hope it's going to last us a few years. So we have to find this balance between what we need right now and what we're probably going to need in the future. But this leads to a really tough question. If you spend more money today, are you making a smart, future-proof investment, or are you just overspending on power you might never actually use?
And this comment from Mason Allison 951616 just hits the nail on the head. They totally get that, yeah, 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD would be better, but they make a powerful point. If you have little money and build like this, it's a huge loss. This is so important to remember. For someone on a tight budget, every single dollar matters. Spending an extra $50 or $100 on more RAM could mean you have to settle for a slower processor or a weaker graphics card. And for a gamer, that would be a much bigger performance hit. It's a real balancing act, and sinking your budget into one area can be a huge mistake if it means you have to sacrifice a more important part of your system.
So after looking at all the data, the tests, and what real people are saying, let's just boil it all down. Let's slowly recap the key takeaways. First, start thinking of 16 gigabytes of RAM as the new absolute minimum. It's not the comfortable, do whatever you want option anymore. Second, a 1 terabyte SSD is pretty much essential if you want to have more than 1 or 2 big modern games installed. 512 gigs just doesn't cut it for most gamers these days. Third, remember, it's not just about how much you have. Getting faster RAM and a faster SSD really improves the whole feel of your PC, how quickly things open, how smooth it is. And finally, and this is the most important one, your personal, specific use case is the #1 thing that matters. Don't buy what's popular, buy what you actually need.
And so we end with this final challenging thought. By looking at that table and being honest with yourself, you now have the tools to figure out exactly what you need for today. But the real trick is trying to figure out what you might need tomorrow. With new tech like local AI becoming more common, and with games and programs just getting bigger and more complex every year, the demands on our computers are only going to go up. The smartest choice is a careful balance between the budget you have right now and your best guess for what the future holds. So the question I'll leave you with is this: are you building a computer for the person you are today or for the person you're going to be tomorrow?
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe and hit the bell to the later update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end and see you in the next video.